The year was 1415, and an African empire was about to change the world. Imagine standing on the shores of the Indian Ocean in Calicut, India. A massive fleet of ships cuts through the water. These are not European vessels. They belong to the Ming dynasty of China, yes, but they are commanded by Admiral Zheng He, a brilliant navigator born in Yunnan, and his fleet is about to dock at ports across East Africa. What you are witnessing is one of history's most extraordinary maritime expeditions. Between 1405 and 1433, Zheng He led 7 voyages across the Indian Ocean, and these journeys brought Chinese fleets into direct contact with African traders, merchants, and kingdoms from Somalia to Mozambique. This moment, often forgotten in Western history books, proves that Africa was never isolated. It was connected to the wider world through trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange centuries before European colonization. But Africa's story begins much earlier than the 15th century. We must travel back further to 1312, when Mansa Musa of the Mali Empire embarked on his legendary pilgrimage to Mecca. When he crossed the Sahara Desert with 60,000 people and 80 camels carrying 4.5 tons of gold, the world watched in astonishment. Mansa Musa's journey demonstrated the immense wealth and organizational power of the Mali Empire. His pilgrimage was so extravagant that it temporarily destabilized the gold markets of Egypt and the Mediterranean. Think about that. One man's religious devotion literally influenced global economics. This is the Africa that existed before the transatlantic slave trade, before colonization, before the narratives that would later erase this complexity from world memory. Let us also consider the Great Zimbabwe, a civilization that reached its peak between 1100 and 1450. Archaeologists have unearthed massive stone structures, intricate gold work, and evidence of a sophisticated trading network that connected the African interior to the Persian Gulf, India, and possibly beyond. The word Zimbabwe itself comes from the Shona language, meaning house of stone. These ruins tell us something profound. Africa had cities. Africa had architecture. Africa had engineers and artists. Africa had kingdoms. Now the slave trade tested Africa in ways that fundamentally altered its trajectory. Beginning in the 16th century and intensifying through the 18th century, millions of Africans were forcibly removed from their homes. The transatlantic slave trade extracted approximately 12 million Africans. And this is where we must pause and ask ourselves difficult questions. How did this happen? Who participated? African kingdoms themselves sometimes sold captives to European traders. Powerful leaders made choices that rippled through generations. By the time the British abolished the slave trade in 1807, entire regions had been destabilized, populations decimated, and entire cultures interrupted. The consequences were catastrophic and generational. Yet Africa resisted. We must remember the Haitian Revolution, where formerly enslaved Africans and their descendants, under leaders like Toussaint Louverture, overthrew slavery and colonialism in 1804, creating the first black republic in the world. We must remember Queen Zinga of Ndongo and Matamba, who fought Portuguese colonization in Angola during the 17th century. These figures were warriors. They were strategists. They refused to be passive in their own history. The 19th century brought European colonization at scale. By 1900, nearly the entire continent had been divided among European powers. The Berlin Conference of 1884 decided Africa's future without a single African voice in the room. Borders were drawn across communities, families were separated, and resources were extracted with ruthless efficiency. Yet even during colonization, Africans organized resistance movements. Today, we face a crucial moment. Africa's history has been tested, challenged, and often distorted. But you have power. You can choose to learn too.